I think there's going to be the immediate thing, which is obviously what we face just now, the challenge of water. This is becoming very hot there now. The water supply system, people have got very much less water than they need. And as a result of that, waterborne diseases due to the lack of safe and clean water and the destruction of the sanitation systems, they're all bringing about problems for the population living there. As a result of that, there's been a lot of illnesses that have arisen, which are waterborne disease illnesses. And so we have to find a way in the months ahead of how we can have a better supply of water into the areas where people are currently crowded at the moment. And as we know, the hospital system there, Shifa and Nasser, the two big hospitals, have been badly damaged or in fact destroyed. And what we have now is 3/4 of the hospitals and most of the primary healthcare clinics are shutting down, leaving only 10 of 36 hospitals functioning. We hear of amputations being carried out without anesthesia. Miscarriages have increased by a massive number. And I think all of those systems which are not in place, the soaring rates of infectious diseases, hepatitis A, dehydration, respiratory infections and diarrhea. And obviously, given the fact that our supply chain is so weak, we haven't been able to deliver enough assistance into the north part of Gaza. We've had in the last, since the road opened on the military side, we've had 8 convoys. And that's not every day. The other roads, the Saladin Road in the south, the middle road is not working because it's inoperable, because it's destroyed. And the coast road hasn't been open for almost a month. So we have a very limited supply into the north. I was up there a couple of weeks ago, went to Kamal Adwan Hospital and saw myself inside the actual hospital, the children's ward. Every single patient there was facing really serious food insecurity issues, dehydration, emaciation. And we heard from Dr. Usman, who was there, that a child had died the day before, one who was in that ward. So a very precarious situation. WHO and UNICEF are trying their best to get more material in there in order to try and satisfy that need. And also the fact that, we have to get nutritional, not just general food, but specialized nutritional products for children. I then visited the neonatal ward, and there's lack of incubators. Children doubled up in the incubators. And then the last child I saw was in an incubator who was two days old, a boy, but who wasn't prematurely born in 9 months, but he was 1.2 kilos. So low weight birth is going to be a real problem, I think, for children of that kind, people who are not getting nutritional. There's going to be long-term consequences which will be felt, and the development possibilities of that child, of those children, are going to be quite limited, I would say. We've heard from Israel a lot of announcements of them over the last days of the fact that they want to open up and be much more supportive of that. One of the claims they also say is that they've put in 1,000 trucks over the last few days, entered into Gaza, and only around 800 have been collected by the Palestinian side. There are challenges in that regard because the number scanned by Israel doesn't correlate with the number of trucks being collected and dispatched inside Gaza. There's many reasons for that. We have to load and offload the trucks that come from Israel. Israel believes that their responsibility ends when they deliver trucks from Kerem Shalom into the Palestinian side. And I would say that that's certainly not the case. Their responsibility ends when aid reaches the civilians in Gaza. And we have to have them supportive of that. And that means allowing more facilitation, allows more routes in, and obviously to provide security for us as we move. At the moment, we don't have security. The blue policemen who were there before are no longer able to do the job of securing convoys, of crowd control, etc. We don't have that anymore. And so what we have instead is the possibilities of getting ransacked and looted, which is a common occurrence in a place where people are very desperate. And it's a common occurrence where places are very congested, the roads are in bad shape, and we use very predictable roads to move goods around. So we face real law and order problems, and there's a security vacuum there that's been filled by various groups. Some of them, we don't know who they are, but they're there because of organizing traffic control. You see some guns, AK-47s and pistols around. So there's clearly groups that are there, and there have been incidents recently when we're coming out of the Rafah Blue Gate, when you have smugglers who are there waiting to get the cigarettes that have been brought in from Egypt. There's always a squabbling over who gets them because it's a very high value commodity. And most recently, there was a couple of gunfights outside the gate where we normally go, and a couple of people were shot and killed. And so that's the environment we're working in. And it's very easy for Israel to say, we've sent you 1,000 trucks, so please deliver them inside Gaza. I say it goes on much more than that. Well, for example, we are trying to move goods around and move goods to the north. There's only the 3 roads there. We've mentioned the middle road, which is Sahladin Road, the coastal road, which is Al Rashid Road, and then there's a military road on the east side. At no point in time in the last month and more have we had 3 or even 2 of those roads working at the same time simultaneously. And the roads themselves are in very poor condition. And also when we do use the one road, which is the Sahladin Road, where UNICEF was shot, what happened there was that we were held, there's a holding area at the checkpoint, and we are held there for hours. And so far this month, we've wasted 60 hours of trucks going up there, downtime, on dead time, on convoys. And this means that those trucks, those people are locked into that place for a long time. And then what happens, sometimes it's too late in the day because we can only travel in daylight hours to go north, and therefore sometimes the mission is cancelled. And then we get blamed by Israel for cancelling the convoy, or cancelling the mission to the north. And we need to get a better understanding from them of what that looks like. I had a meeting this week with Major General Finkelman. He's the head of the Southern Command of the IDF. And we talked very openly about some of the things that are missing. This came as a result of the World Central Kitchen issue and the complaints we made about the deconfliction and notification system being wrong, not being working, not predictable, not protecting humanitarian workers. We talked about the communications challenges. We are working in a very hostile area as humanitarians without the possibility of contacting each other. We don't have radios, we don't have mobile networks that work. And so what we then do is we have to find ways of passing messages back to OCHA and other organizations in Rafah and then relaying it out. And if we have a serious security incident, we don't have a hotline. We don't have any way of communicating the IDF if we're facing problems at a checkpoint or facing problems en route. And I think there's another thing I would say, that there's a real challenge of weapons discipline and a challenge of the behavior of soldiers at checkpoints. And we've tried time and time again to bring to their attention, whereas I think one of the things that we should understand, that the IDF have never worked with humanitarian organizations before in this type of environment. They don't understand how we function. They don't understand our language, what our purpose is, and we don't understand their expectations. And there's a degree of mistrust and misunderstanding that we have to address. And this meeting with Major General Finkelman of the IDF, I think hopefully helps that, because he said, he told us that he sees us as we're not against them. You're working and serving for a good goal, and it's a challenging environment. So, we want to work with them differently. We want to find ways how we can speak to soldiers in a way at the checkpoint that's more respectful and more trustful. And that's something he said he would take forward and help move that. He talked about markings on vehicles that have to be much more clearer in terms of showing the UN or the NGOs working there. And we need to have much more regular engagement with the IDF. Right now, that's the first time I've met them since I've been here. And we have to find ways of having a joint operations cell, which we can then discuss some of these challenges, and then also to have this hotline or this number that we can call in the event of a crisis. But more importantly for ourselves, we need communications equipment. We need to get mobile phones, we get 3G, we have to get VHF repeaters, we have to get sat phones, all of the things we need as we have in any other operation. This is an operation I've never seen the lack of communications equipment in a very hostile environment. And then we've also had discussions this week on the pier, this new temporary pier, the floating pier that's talked about. We've been discussing about how that's set up, how it looks like, and then ultimately how we would operate or interact with it. There's still work to be done on that in terms of what it is. We'd hoped that the pier would be in the north of Gaza to address the imminent famine challenges in the north. And we would hope that's where we could actually do the work. However, it's been decided that it would come south, and it would be where the IDF have a base or have a compound and have a military road, and that's where that will now be there. We have still some concerns over the perception and the neutrality of the project, and because in many ways the plan or the operation that's been set up actually embeds us in an IDF surrounded perimeter, and I think that's difficult for us. We've had conversations with US CENTCOM, we've had a conversation with the US government, and obviously with the Israelis as well, to try and come up with a solution to that. So it remains to something. Martin Griffiths, the ERC, put out a statement today or yesterday on the neutrality and perception issue. And we're trying to develop a paper which will try to give us operational clarity on how we need to work. We've had a lot of new developments from Israel. They've made a number of announcements in terms of how they wish to open up things differently, different types of commitments. We are, as the UN, committed to using all possible routes to scale up humanitarian assistance throughout Gaza. But right now, we see that there have been a number of commitments made by Israel, a number of concessions, we would say, things that we've been pushing for months to try and get a better way into that. We think it needs to be done in a way so we can get safely and timely assistance into the people that need it. And we've repeated the request for more openings. So what they've said is they're going to give us a coordination cell, which will be established with the humanitarians directly, including the IDF Southern Command. And then also the plans to open up Erez, as I mentioned, the assessment today, and have selected materials coming from Ashdod, which would be a simpler delivery from Ashdod directly into north of Gaza. And the idea would be to try and increase the number of trucks coming from Jordan through the Allenby Bridge towards Gaza. And the idea is to try and open up the two areas where the scanning's done, the Kerem Shalom and Nitzana, to have much more operating hours, to have extended operating hours. We don't, at the moment, it's not open on a Saturday. And also the daylight hours are much longer now, so we should try and capitalize on those. And then there's also a commitment to actually approve the Nawal Oz waterline into North Gaza to get that restarted again from Israel. So these are the commitments out there, and we are working with the Israelis now to see if we can get that moved on so we can actually have a better performance and a better response to the crisis in Gaza. I'll stop there if that's okay, Jens.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for this very comprehensive overview. And just on a question that was raised, Mr. McGoldrick is speaking from Jerusalem. And we are looking at providing you with a transcript when that is available. I want to go to questions now. I want to see if there is in the room, and I have Nina Larsen first from AFP, and then Gabrielle from Reuters, and then I have a few online. So Nina first.
Thank you very much for taking the question and for this briefing. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about specific commitments you may have received from the Israelis when it comes to resolving the difficulties, the many difficulties that you mentioned around the deconfliction and around getting aid through. And I was wondering in particular if, sorry, just a second. Yeah, sorry, that's it. If you could just say a little bit more about that. Thanks.
Sorry, could you say that specific? I didn't hear the specific issue you asked for there. It was to do with the commitments.
Sorry, yeah, it was about actually it was about the communications. I was wondering about the issue you mentioned about communications equipment lacking. Why is that specifically that you don't have that equipment, and what is it you need to get it? Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Shall we take the Reuters one as well first, and then I'll do the two together?
No, thank you. Normally we take them one at a time.
Okay. No problem. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
We've been asking for a couple of things since day one of the Israelis. One has been the fact that the deconfliction system we have is not directly with the IDF. We go through CLA, which is a coordination liaison administration office, and then we deal with COGAT. We don't deal directly with IDF. We need to be speaking to people who are firing guns, who control weaponry, and we have to build up an understanding from them and ourselves of how we work. The deconfliction system has been consistently inaccurate, and it hasn't worked in our favor, to be honest with you. There have been so many incidents, and we've been saying for a long time to the Israelis, warning them there's likely to be an incident that will come up, which is going to be quite a tragic one. And it happened 2 weeks ago with the World Central Kitchens. We've said to them that the deconfliction system and the notification system are not fit for purpose. We have to find a way of revising those. And that's one thing. And then as part of that, in order for us to interface with military and when it's an emergency is underway, we have to have a hotline and the ability to speak to them. And in the case of any incidents we cannot, if you're sitting in a car and you've been caught up in a firefight or there's bullets or something happening there, you have to relay that message back through the office and then to CLA and then to IDF. And this is a long way around. In the middle of a very, very hot emergency, that's the last thing you need is delays. And that communication problem was highlighted in the readout from the World Central Kitchens issue. So we've asked for communications equipment from the very beginning. We've given pages and pages to COGAT on the specifications, on the needs we have in terms of, we need to have mobile networks, so with 3G, we have to have we have to have BGAN SAT systems, we have to have handheld radios, VHF radios, all the things you'd have in any normal normal crisis. We don't have them. The reason why Israel give us is the fact that they say to us that those communications equipment might fall into the hands of Hamas. And as far as I'm concerned, we have the ability to switch those off at a central source. So that's not an excuse for me.
Thank you very much. Gabriel Rojas.
Thank you very much for the briefing. Just a quick question regarding COGAT figures about the number of trucks. I know there has been some disagreement in terms of how to count what aid is actually going through the crossings. And COGAT is called the way of the UN has counted as flawed. What is your view on how these supplies are counted? Because according to what COGAT says, it's almost pre-war levels, which is not in fact the case. Thank you.
Well, maybe just to say that pre-war levels were 500, 600 a day that were processed but not scanned. They're now being scanned. It's a much slower process. I would say we used to get like 600 trucks in a day, but you should also remember in those days, probably about 1/3 of those trucks, even less, were humanitarian. The rest were private sector. And so when they say there's more trucks now of humanitarian than before October the 7th, that's true. But we were not the bulk of the food and the bulk of the supplies that were coming in. So that side of their argument is questionable. The second thing I would say is that the numbers, I mean, they're using, for example, smaller trucks than we do. And then we bring the trucks into our side and we load them onto bigger trucks, trailer trucks and stuff like that. So we have less numbers of trucks going out. We also get trucks at the wrong time of the day for us to be able to offload, put on warehouses, reload and get out to Rafah because of the security and the timelines. And also I would flag to you that all the trucks that come in and they mention the numbers, that also includes large numbers of private sector. These are not all humanitarian, but we are responsible in their eyes for taking the private sector commercial trucks and cargo into Gaza. So I would say that there's obviously, we have problems in terms of our ability to move stuff through quickly and offload and reload again. It's a hostile environment. And as I said earlier, I don't think that Israel can say that they give large numbers of trucks from Kerem Shalom and the Israel side into Gaza when it actually goes into the holding area where we have to process them, reload them and offload them and back again. And so I think that their responsibility, Israel, ends once it reaches the civilians of Gaza. So we should count the number of trucks we get to the north, the number of trucks we get out. And the reason why we don't get them out is because of the insecurity. The reason why we don't get them out to the north is because they don't approve the convoys that go north. There were, again, 2 convoys set for this morning that were cancelled. There was another mission set for this morning as well and cancelled. So while the trucks come out in big numbers from Kerem Shalom and Israel's praising itself for that, you also have to remember there are complications for us to logistically deal with it, but then more importantly, to actually secure our way out. And then lastly, to get permission to go out with those trucks to the north.
Thank you, Jamie. We have one question from Japanese press, and then we will go to Isabel Saku from FA Online.
Yes, thank you very much for doing it. I have a question about the coordination unit. When actually will the coordination unit as a direct contact with the Southern Commander will be established? If IDF indicated the timing of it. And then also you succeeded Miss Lynn Hastings, who was denied renewal of her visa in Israel. And I'm wondering, and now you are completing your 3-month mission. And I was wondering if this 3 months period is already agreed beforehand, or this is sort of 3 months period is unexpectedly complete, and then who will be the successor of your post? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe I'll take the last question first. I mean, I was only ever meant to be here for a bridging period, and that was to be around 3 months. It's almost 4 months since I've been here. In that time, the UN system has been recruiting a replacement, the permanent replacement. That's done as far as I know, and I hear that the Secretary General will make an announcement shortly. I don't know when that would be, but I know it's imminent. In terms of your question on when this IDF sort of coordination cell will be established, we have a cell already right now, which includes CLA, COGA, and ourselves, the humanitarians. The missing part of it, as I mentioned, is the IDF. We were told that by the general, the Major General during the week, he will put one of his IDF members in there. I think that helps with the operational level of things, but I think we also have to have a higher level discussion on a regular basis with Major General Finkelman and my successor to make sure that some of the operational issues that are being addressed in the cell will also carry out and come to fruition. So I think what we're looking for is a 2-level of that, and that's not something that we've worked out yet. But we've seen and heard the commitment from the Major General, and we're going to keep him to that commitment and make sure we get that set up and running as soon as possible. And with that, to complement the use of a hotline and also to have better communications equipment inside Gaza.
Thank you, Jamie. Now, Isabel from Spanish EFE, and after that, Nick Cumming-Bruce from New York Times. Over to you, Isabel.
Yeah. Yes, hello, good morning. Thank you very much. Isabel Saco for the Spanish News Agency. My question is on, I have the impression from what you have said during your remarks that the situation for the humanitarians have not improved in any terms after the incident with the humanitarians of the World Central Kitchen. So could you confirm this, even if you have had this meeting with this general, that the situation remains the same? You mentioned a bullet into a car of UNICEF yesterday. Could you give some details? And if the situation doesn't really improve for the humanitarian aid coming into Gaza and being distributed to the civilians, what do you foresee will be the situation in the next weeks inside the territory? Thank you.
Thanks. I don't think there's been any notable improvement in terms of our ability to move around. Certainly not our approval to get convoys going to the north. They've been blocked again today, as I said. The incident you mentioned, UNICEF, what happened was the mission had gone and was held at the checkpoint. And at the checkpoint in Saladin Road, there's a holding area where the trucks and cars wait until they give them the green light to cross over. And in that time, I heard there was a shooting incident that took place. And as a result of that, there's a bit of a firefight between the Israeli forces and another I don't know who the other person was. But as a result of that, 3 bullets hit the UNICEF car, and luckily no one was hit. Earlier in the week, there was also an incident with a WFP car as well, a vehicle which was caught up in a firefight as well. So while the World Central Kitchen issue has happened, and it's a tragic incident, and there's been a lot of reports back from the Israelis about miscalculations, about mistakes, about these things, I think it just brings into stark focus how unpredictable the system that we use for our own protection and safety is not working. And I think it's something we have to continue to ask for improvements. And that meeting this week with the Major General Finkelman at the IDF Southern Command was exactly for that purpose. And along with ICRC and the US humanitarian envoy, we pressed the point that we have to have a system that allows us to be safe and to be protected, and that's the responsibility of Israel as we operate in the territory that they occupy.
Thank you. Over to Nick, New York Times.
Thank you, actually. Isabel pretty much asked the question I was going to ask, but I mean, it seems to me that in the last 2 weeks, net, nothing has significantly changed. There may be a little bit more supplies coming in, but the system is still the same, and none of the concessions that seem to have been mooted after the World Central Kitchen crisis seem to have been operationalized. Do you have any timeline for getting supplies in from Ashdod Port and opening the Erez crossing? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, no, to be honest with you, we see the big numbers that Israel announced are coming out of Kerem Shalom, but that doesn't mean they then get delivered inside, as I mentioned earlier, some of the complications that we have to face and the fact that we don't get convoys to the north on a regular enough basis. Those are the working environment that we're in. The concessions we made were very welcome. I think there's something we've been asking for a long time from the Israelis, and they, after the tragic incident of World Central Kitchens, have taken it upon themselves to make the announcements. All we can do is keep pressing them for that. I mean, we were supposed to do a recce this morning to the Erez crossing and to the Ashdod and the Zakim crossing, but that mission was cancelled because of insecurity. So we will continue to remind the Israelis of what we want from them, what we need from them, in order for us to make the humanitarian situation better. And that means complicity with them. It means working with them to open up the Ashdod, to open up the Erez or whatever crossing in the north, to hopefully get Carney back on as well. And at the same time, have the 3 routes which are in the south to the north are opened up and functioning. And it's not the case at the moment. So all we can do is keep reminding them and using the pressure from key member states to remind Israel of the commitments they've made and the commitments that we've been asking for such a long time. It's not something that's come as a surprise to us. It's something we've been pushing for from day one, and they've now seen it's necessary to start considering those. I would also caution the fact that when they talk about Ashdod to Erez, they've also used the word temporarily. And there's a worry is that it's only for a short period of time and then they'll close it down again. That would be an essential lifeline into the north, because that's where the population, according to the IPC, the recent Famine Committee report, that is where the bulk of people who are the most danger of slipping into famine. And that's why we wanted the Ashdod port opened up into Gaza directly. And that's why we were hoping for the floating pier that would have been more northerly based in order to address the issues in Gaza City and the north part where the bulk of the population are.
Thank you, Jamie. I have Isabel Sacco from EFE with a hand up again. So back to you, Isabel.
Yes, thank you very much. I had a second part of my question that you didn't answer, and it was about what do you foresee as the situation in the next weeks if the access of humanitarian aid doesn't improve, given the situation of famine in the north and the situation also in the south of Gaza. I could maybe take the opportunity also to ask, did you have any exchange with this Major General about the plans of Israel that has made public to make an incursion into Rafah? And did you discuss this with him? Thank you.
Thank you. On the weeks ahead, if we don't, it's not so much what they've told us in terms of concessions. If in the weeks ahead, if we don't have the chance to expand the delivery of aid into all parts Gaza, but in particular to the north, then we're going to face a catastrophe. The people up there are living such a fragile and precarious existence. We've had 8 convoys to the north using the military road over the last month. There's been very intermittent commercial traffic has gone up the coast road. It's not enough to satisfy the needs which are there, and they're massive. And we can see by the health situation, we can see by the sort of the nutritional, the way that children are starting to show real serious signs of malnutrition. And the fact that the IPC Famine Committee report highlighted that 70% of the population up there were in real danger of slipping into famine. So we need to see a change in that, but we haven't seen that happening. And we hope that the announcements are made, we can hold them to those words, and we can open up more pipelines and more entry points to the north and elsewhere to get more roads operational, to get more supplies in. And it remains to be seen, but right now there's been no visible difference in the changes that we've seen on the ground. And I think Israel knows that we're in a very precarious position, and Israel knows that they have to be seen to be much more permissive towards what we're trying to achieve as a humanitarian. In terms of the Rafah planning, it came up in the meeting in the sense that we flagged it. I flagged it as an issue that we were concerned about, but clearly we're not going to get into discussion on the actual military aspect of it. We know politically, we've heard people saying it's imminent and others saying it's not imminent. We saw that there was a differentiation of words from, for example, Prime Minister Netanyahu versus what Defence Minister Gallant said. So I don't think there's really a clear way forward. We have been insisting since day one, though, a couple of things. One, we would require time to be able to prepare and pre-locate or have in place where people might move to supplies. We can't do that right now because we don't have enough supplies coming in on a regular basis. We're barely able to feed the people and support the people currently. And if we were to add on another dimension of that, a contingency planning process for a Rafah incursion, we are nowhere near ready for that. We cannot pre-position material we don't have. And if people are looking for water and sanitation at a time of real problems in terms of weather and the shelter issue, as well as our food supply issue, and then the health system is no longer functioning. As part of our own planning, we've set up emergency medical field hospitals all the way up the north, at the middle part of Gaza, and that would be then to try and accommodate if the Rafah Gaza gets locked into some sort of military incursion and we can't operate from there. The health system itself is in really bad shape. As you know, there's only 10 out of the 35 hospitals that are working, and barely 2/3 of the primary healthcare centres are no longer working either. So we face a real dramatic situation ahead of us. And if there was to be a Rafah incursion, I know the figures that they're mentioning of evacuating some 800,000 from Rafah. There is no space as we see it right now, in Al-Mawassa or anywhere else on the coast where you can accommodate that number, because there's 400,000 plus people already there. So we are in an advocacy mode to say this shouldn't happen. And we're also at the same time ringing the alarm bells that we're nowhere near ready if we had to address the needs. We will not be part of any helping the people move, will not be part of any evacuation, but we have to stand ready if we can to support them when they do arrive at another destination. Some people having been displaced for 5 or 6 times already.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Just looking in the room and online, and I don't see any more questions. So I think we can wrap it up here. But as this is probably the last time we see you in this capacity, I just want to thank you very much, Jamie, for your transparency and your availability for the press in this very important job. And then perhaps give you the last word that we want to tell the media on this occasion. Yeah. Over to you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for that. Thanks for the opportunity of telling people, what the situation is. We know that the international media is not present inside Gaza, and it's important that we as humanitarians bring the stories and the issues out so that people can see for themselves and hear for themselves. Sadly, that's not easy. We face a lot of challenges on the ground to serve the population there. I think we have to flag the fact that, national staff are working for organizations like UNRWA and other INGOs. They are really struggling in the sense that they've been affected themselves by the crisis. They've lost loved ones, their family, their livelihoods have gone and past them, and now yet they come up to work every single day, working hard to support other fellow Gazans. And I think we have to admire that approach, that resilience, and that's where the hope is. I mean, Gaza's been through a lot of crises in the past, nothing anywhere close to this one. It's massive, and so we then have to find a way to be better able to support them, better able to give them a chance and give them some positivity. And I would also just to thank all of the humanitarian workers currently under real serious challenges in the Gaza context. And they come to work every day and they put their head down and just get on with it. And for me, it was a real honor to be part of that. So thanks, Jens.
Thank you very much, Jamie, for those words. I'm sure they are appreciated in Gaza and elsewhere. So with that, we will end this press conference. Thank you for your participation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye.